We'll start with the profile tool. I'm going to start at my origin, make my first point, make a vertical line. I want to lock into that origin there. I'm going to click and hold, turn the corner, and make a tangent arc. But I also want to lock in a 90-degree right edge there. And then I'm going to continue on with my line going forward, locking in that tangent relationship if I can. Click, drag away, and release to form that 3-point arc, locking in my 90-degree angle, making sure that it's horizontal with my original line on that other side. And then drawing down to the baseline where I started. And you can see that that horizontal line turns blue to help guide you to that connection. It kind of helps you create symmetry whenever it's possible. Click that point, go back to the origin, and finally click that point there to end off my closed loop. So now when I deselect, I'm going to have a couple of lines and a couple of constraints that are automatically generated for me. Now in order to make this fully defined, I'm going to need to add some constraints. So over here on the constraints toolbar that looks like this, I've got length constraints underneath our typical constraint tool. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the line segment that I want to populate, and I'm going to place my measurement. So at this point you should be going, okay, 3.712, maybe not the right number that I want. But more importantly, is it inches? Is it units? Is it feet? So if you don't know what unit system you're in, always is a good idea to go up to Tools, Options, and decide and determine which one you want. So underneath General, you can use the little negative sign, plus sign to expand that out. Parameters and measures. And then 3 off to the side is going to be units. And then if you click into the length measurement there, inches, we're going to change that over to millimeters. And click OK, and that's going to set our units. So notice it converted the measurement that was already there, but it didn't change the number. So if you had defined it as 10, it would still be 10 inches or the equivalent to in millimeters. I'm going to double click on my constraint, and that will bring up the value information there. So I'm going to go ahead and click 100. You don't have to type millimeters, but you can if you want to. If you typed millimeters, it would just be definitely in millimeters. But since you're already in millimeters by default, then everything that you enter is going to be millimeters until you tell it otherwise. That being said, if I wanted to, say, create a constraint on the right-hand side that was in inches, I could do that. I wouldn't really want to because you always want your variables to be consistent across your drawing, but technically I could make this 2 inches. And it would convert that into millimeters for me. So really I want this to be 50. So we're going to use 50 millimeters instead. Now notice that when I created the 50, it didn't turn all the way green yet. That's because I'm still missing a constraint that's holding that up. So if you do something accidentally and you want to undo, Control-Z will get you back there. Now does anyone? So the constraint, looks like I undid one too many times, so we'll add that back as 50. And then you can see on the left-hand side here that I have a V showing that it is vertical. So I don't have that on my right-hand side. So instead of using the length constraint, I want to use the constraints defined in the dialog box. I'm going to make sure my line segment is selected, click into my constraints and choose vertical. That makes that fully constrained now. And if you click on your line segments and move them around, it kind of helps you identify what your issues are. So here I know on the left-hand side I still need a length one. I could go in and create a line segment, length measurement, and set that to 50. So when you have arcs, the easiest way to constrain those is going to be by using a magnitude. and that's going to be still underneath the length constraint. But instead, when you choose the arc, it's going to convert it into a radius value. And if it's a circle, it'll be a full diameter. But anything less than a full circle is going to be radius. I'm going to make this be 25. I'm going to do the same on the one on the left. And now my entire object turns green, meaning it is fully constrained. And I can check that down at the bottom, use sketch solving status, and that will come up and show me that it is indeed ISO constrained, meaning it is fully constrained. So some of the other tools that we could use, the circle tool, we've got a couple of them. So if you use the down arrow, you can get to the other options. So you can do a 3-point circle, you can do arcs under that as well. But the center circle is the one that I prefer to use. So if I start on this center point of my arc and create a circle with a diameter of 25, I can make that placement and then create my constraint. Double click to make it 25. Notice that it already turned green. It set that value, the generic value there before I created it manually. So it would have been constrained, but then I edited that constraint. Now when you're placing it, you do have the option of being a little bit more specific with it. So you can see up at the top here, those options to change the size. So if I wanted to change the radius, I could make that be 25 divided by 2. And it would set it, but notice that it's listed here as a radius value, which isn't traditionally how you see them on the drawings. So one more thing, the rectangle tool, we've got, again, several different options under here. You can also make slots, elongated slots, keyholes, polygons of various sizes. But for the rectangle, let's go ahead and start with this one. I want to place it inside of my object right here. Try not to create any other constraints accidentally. So notice all these blue lines that come up trying to form constraints. So I'm going to place it where I don't have any of those, and then place my second endpoint across on the other side. Now for this one, we're going to need both magnitude and location because we didn't automatically create any location constraints. So the first thing I want to do is create the magnitude values. So this one is going to be 75. My vertical is going to be 20. And then in terms of location, I want it to be half the distance from the other side. So between 175, that leaves me 25, and then split the difference 12.5 on each side. But if I didn't know that, or it wasn't as clear, I could go in, select both lines, create a distance measure between them, and I can actually let CATIA do the math for me. So when I click into there, I can say 100 minus 75 in parentheses divided by 2. And it'll calculate it for me. Now notice that both of the line segments turn green now because I've actually defined the length from the left side to my object and then from the object to the other side of the object. I don't then need to create a constraint between there and the other edge because I've already got a constraint on the full baseline at the bottom. I do need a vertical constraint though, and I want that to be the same 12.5 measurement. So I'm going to select both line segments, create a distance constraint between them, place that, double click to edit and make it 12.5. So again, check to make sure that you are fully constrained. Down in the sketch solving status, I want it to say ISO constrained, and that is indeed constrained. So to finish out this sketch, let's go ahead and measure a couple of points just to make sure that it looks pretty good and in line with what we would expect. So the measure toolbar down here at the bottom, the one that looks like a ruler, is going to allow us to make measurements between any of our geometry. So let's use the point at the very bottom left-hand corner down there by the origin as our first point, and then the center point of our leftmost circle as the second. You can see there that it's going to generate the shortest distance between the 2 points and give you a measurement for it. So that would come up to 55.9.